Welcome to Glorious Botafogo, your number one source of Botafogo news in English. And my goodness, these last few 24 to 36 hours have been quite the talk around the world of football, especially when it comes to Brazil, England, and France. And then when it comes to John Textor, Marinakis, and Olympique Lyonnais, because there's been quite a few moves happening behind the scenes, moves happening for everybody to see, and then some moves happening that, quite honestly, are about to shake and ruffle a lot of feathers across a lot of different people with a lot of influence, people with a lot of money, people with a lot of power, and it's gonna get ugly, I think. I hope not. But I think it may get ugly. So let's talk about this for a little bit. So what is going on exactly? As some of you know, or for those that don't know, Botafogo and Olympique Lyonnais are no longer linked together in the financial sense. Botafogo and OL have parted ways financially speaking. Remember, under John Textor's MCO, all the clubs shared a bank account, which would allow John Textor to loan money from one team to another, buy players with the funds of another team, or send funds from one team to another to help. But it was a requirement by the DNCG in France for John Textor to get out of the group and end this joint account thing. So the DNCG said it was a requirement for Olympique Lyonnais to have its own bank account. That way, they would have the guarantee to remain in League One. That's a requirement, right? So what happens from that point on? Well, behind the scenes, there was a motion to change leadership. Olympique Lyonnais, led by Aries Management, and Michel Kang, which is now the CEO of Eagle Football Holdings. So it's very, very important to know that separation. Eagle Football Holdings tried, after the management changes and sort of putting Textor out into the side and to say, hey, you take care of Botafogo, leave Olympique Lyonnais alone. There was a attempt at a coup, per se, to remove John Textor from Botafogo as well, from all the other clubs that he's got. But I think Botafogo was one of the main ones because, as revealed earlier this week by John Textor, Botafogo is the one that generates the money in Eagle football. So in Brazil, there was a law passed which allowed the social clubs, like the soccer clubs, the football clubs, to become enterprises, and they're called SAFs in Brazil. And this attempt at removing John Textor got stopped in its tracks due to contractual obligations that John Textor had or has with Botafogo under the SAF contract. Remember that Eagle Football Holdings is not the name of the proprietor of Botafogo. It is John Textor. So it's not the company. It's not Eagle Football Holdings. It is John Textor, the person, the entity John Textor. So the social club, along with judiciary guarantees, told Eagle Football Holdings that if you try to remove Textor, and if you succeed in removing John Textor, you can use this letter that we're sending you right now as our official resignation letter, which will be in immediate effect, and within 48 to 72 hours, everybody from the club will be gone. So that stopped this coup attempt from happening, also because of the contract of the SAF. So with the separation happening behind the scenes, John Textor did an interview, which he said that Botafogo is actually the one financing Europe from all the earnings that the club has been getting from player sales, from winning tournaments and titles, and that combined, Aries and Olympique Lyonnais owe Botafogo 150 million euros, with Olympique Lyonnais owning 23 million of that. The Court Justice of Rio, upon seeing a document that John Textor provided saying that Olympique Lyonnais does indeed owe that money, they froze Eagle Football Holdings' assets in Rio, which maintains John Textor in power and prevents any sort of leadership change. So they are maintaining Textor in power and reassuring and reaffirming that he's the one that controls Botafogo. Globo revealed the contract that John Textor basically made with himself when he was owner of Olympique Lyonnais, that in March and May, Botafogo made the loans that totaled in 23 million euros. So that money is real, it exists, and it is owed by Olympique Lyonnais to Botafogo. Since the sole bank account, the joint bank account no longer exists, everything is separated, which is how OL got stuck with a debt, which is Textor's money. So now, John Textor, remember, the guarantee for Olympique Lyonnais to stay at Ligue 1 was that John Textor would be gone from Olympique Lyonnais. So when that happened, the DNCG kind of screwed Olympique Lyonnais, and now they are stuck with that debt because it's Textor's debt to Textor. But now, since Textor's no longer in the picture, it is Eagle Football Holdings and Olympique Lyonnais that owe John Textor. So this, I don't know if you guys remember when there was this meeting of John Textor with the leaders and owners of the Ligue 1 football teams. And he made it very clear that he wanted changes in the league to make the league more competitive, to be able to bring in more money, more assets. And one of them was to abolish the DNCG. So this move by the DNCG, although Textor have presented the financial guarantees, was solely a retaliation and to get Textor completely out of the picture. And then just a few days ago, it came out on the news how the broadcast contract at Ligue 1 is slowly deteriorating, which is going to make it super hard for teams like Olympique Lyonnais to be able to compete with PSG. It seems like the Ligue 1 is walking with large steps to becoming an even more one-sided league than the Bundesliga. But you chose that path, so you walked the path. So when Textor noticed that the coup was underway, he decided to start a brand new company called Eagle Football Group. This new entity, this new company is going to be created in the Cayman Islands. And that has started a process that will allow John Textor to rebuy Botafogo, either by paying the money up front or renegotiating the debt that, him, Aris, Iconic, and OL all have with one another and together. So now that this is becoming a separate thing and Botafogo is being moved away from that partnership because Textor himself said there's more fruitful and there's more interesting partnerships that are going to happen for Botafogo in Europe than to staying with Olympique Lyonnais. Then he wants to use that money to rebuy Botafogo and get everything that is owed to him according to John Textor. Remember, I am not saying that all of these things are true. I am just reporting the facts, and these are the facts. The facts that we know through the Brazilian media, what's coming out of France, what's coming out of England, and I'm trying to put together everything, and I'm giving you these things. So the trace of the debt between Textor and Aries exists. The trace of debt between OL and Botafogo exists. The trace that Botafogo with Textor and Marinakis, they are pooling money together to rebuy Botafogo, that exists. So I'm not making any of this up. I'm doing my best to put it in the contextual and in an accurate manner. And I may have failed to do it in some way, but I'm trying. Now enter Marinakis. In 2024, you remember that John Textor and Marinakis were doing deals between Forest and OL. Some saying that OL was overpaying for some players. And then this year, Forest bought some Botafogo players from below market value. So there is some stuff going on in the background. That one thing is for sure. This partnership between John Textor and Marinakis have been happening for a while. It's not new. It's been happening for a while. So now Marinakis will aid John Textor in reacquiring Botafogo by footing the bill. And according to Medeiros, Marinakis would invest 100 million euros into Textor's new MCO, Eagle Football Group. And the idea is to initially not to merge both MCOs, which would have Botafogo, Molenbeek, and FC Florida, plus Marinakis' MCO. The idea is to have Marinakis be a minority shareholder into Eagle Football Group and have John Textor be a minority shareholder in Marinakis' new, not new, but into Marinakis' MCO, at least for now. I'm sure there have been talks, and I'm sure and I've heard other people talk about this. There is a possibility of later on Botafogo being included into Marinakis' MCO and John Textor being the day-to-day person at Botafogo, just like he is now, because Marinakis likes the way that John Textor is handling and managing Botafogo. He likes it, and he wants to keep Textor there. So it's a lot of things. Yes, Botafogo loaned money to well. John Textor owes a lot of money. There's been, these things coming out in the news and how Textor owes money to this team and this person and that person. But you got to remember that he's also owed a lot of money. So that is kind of the best I can do right now to summarize everything that's been happening. But I'm sure the next few days we're going to have more coming out about this, and I will be sure to come over here and give you guys an update on everything that's going on, because this is very important. It not only affects Olympique Lyonnais, it affects Botafogo, it affects Forest, and in a way it also affects Crystal Palace, which is also no longer in the MCO. So lots of changes. Botafogo is going to, for now, stay with John Textor, and it seems like in the long run this is going to be a great move for the club. It's not unknown to people that Marinakis wants to invest in Brazilian football. He tried with Vasco, he tried with Sao Paulo, and it seems like the way to do it would be with Botafogo, and Textor wants a Premier League team. Marinakis has Forest, so things are kind of starting to align like a Tetris puzzle. But we will see. Some pieces are not aligning correctly just yet. But if you got in here so far, please please comment. Let me know what you think about all of this, and I will again keep you guys informed on everything new. I'll probably do this in a week by week or maybe a bi-weekly basis, because something comes out in the news and then 24 hours later something else comes out. It either reinforces or denies or rejects what the other article said. So it takes a few days for the dust to settle. So anything new that comes out, I'm going to let the dust settle so I can bring you guys the most accurate and up-to-date information that I have. Botafogo will play Cruzeiro this Sunday at the Newton Santos, which Botafogo is undefeated at home for 16 months, and Cruzeiro was the last team to beat the club. So, for 16 matches, and Cruzeiro was the last one to beat. So we will see Botafogo and Cruzeiro for the Brasileirão. It signifies a climb up the table for Botafogo to hold Cruzeiro and get closer to the first place teams.